A warm welcome to our listeners and a special warm welcome to Mr. Daniel Steinman. This is a Corner Chat Let's Talk Business with Mr. Daniel Steinman. A lot has been happening while we were gone. We're talking about the BRICS summit that has been happening. We're also talking about the G20 summit that is currently happening. And we've spoken off air, Mr. Daniel Steinman, and you gave your opinion, I would say, in regards to saying that it doesn't help that we have all these summits all the time with the G20s and the BRICS summit, and we have the African states coming together and having all these summits, but at the end of the day, the people on the ground are suffering.
And they are suffering really hard.
Yeah, severely with poverty. Yeah. So let's start with the BRICS summit that has happened about 2 weeks ago. Let's just touch on that.
It was actually last week.
Last week.
Yes, it was in Johannesburg. Now, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The five sort of upcoming developing economies. And but it's very interesting. A country like China and India, they are both also part of the G20. So a little bit later I'll look at what sort of conflict of interest there can be. But for now, what I want to point out to you and to our listeners is that whenever you listen to the presentations at these summits, it sounds like they've all been delivered at the same summit.
Yeah.
The reason I say that, it sounds the same. You get these big fancy words and poverty alleviation and job creation and I'm telling you, I've come to realize after 30 years that it is almost like a political trait. If you're a politician, it is expected of you to use all these big, meaningless words. Because what have we achieved? If we look at the BRICS summit, the big point of discussion there was that the Chinese government has offered to start a BRICS fund, which is basically an economic investment fund, to support the five BRICS countries with investment, which is obvious because China is very active in Africa and also in South Asia with the Roads and Belts initiative. And China is by far the biggest player in the BRICS group. But make no mistake, China has a huge economy, and by some measures you can say that China is the second biggest economy in the world.
Yeah.
But it is not a rich country. If you take that huge Chinese cake and you slice it up into 1.4 billion little pieces, the average Chinese is poorer than the average Namibian. If you look at per capita income, it's actually shocking to look at the per capita figures, to see how very low China is down in the ranks, and that all these countries in Africa that not depend, but that would love to get more Chinese investment, that they are, if you look at the individual level, that they are actually richer than China. The only thing is China is so big because it's got so much people. It's such a large territory. And it's been going on since 1978 to develop its economy. The point I'm making now is whether you listen to the G20 summit or to the BRICS summit, the sound, actually I want to call it the noise that you hear is the same noise. And we've been hearing this for years and years and years and years. And then I ask you, if you look at the reality, I mean, we are no strangers to poverty in Africa. And a part of it you can explain away in a rational sense, that we are sort of midway between coming from a primitive lifestyle to going to an urban lifestyle. That whole urbanization process of which I spoke 2 weeks ago. You know, that's been happening the world over. When when there's a certain political mobility in a community, that community tends to urbanize. There's nothing you can do to stop it. The thing that you have to ask yourself, if you're a leader, is how do you manage it? And manage is not like in the old apartheid days or in the Soviet Russian days, from you have to sit there and you have to go to school there and you have to read this stuff and you have to believe this and you have to eat that. Manage it, by using the word, how do you manage urbanization? I am inferring very strongly that you have to manage the environment in which your people live so that you can fulfill their expectations. Because remember a very basic rule: people don't come from the Kavango to Windhoek to continue fishing in the Kavango River.
Yeah.
They don't want to fish in the Kavango River, or from Umusati to Windhoek to continue planting mahangu. They're looking for a better life.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the point I'm trying to make, and I'm going to pull it through now in the second part of our discussion to the G20. But if you just listen to all these BRICS summits, you know, so I want to call it music, but it's not music. What comes from it is always the same.
Yeah.
And what it achieves is very little. The poor people are still dirt poor.
Yeah. So true. But of course, this conversation is going to get much interesting. So keep it locked to the Power Station Energy 100. We will be back shortly.